To Doug Branson joining us from the Locked On Hornets podcast. Hey, Doug, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited.
I woke you up.
Almost
Sorry.
there. Oh, yeah. No, I'm good. I'm excited. We're ready to go.
All right. So, so many different avenues the Hornets could take tonight. First of all, what have you made of Jeff Peterson's kind of silence in the pre-draft process? And it's not just this year, it's last year too.
That seems to be their whole strategy is let's keep everything in-house. Let's not let anything leak. Let's not have any distractions heading into draft night. And it didn't really result in any kind of trade-up scenario last season. I think they were interested in trading up. I don't think it ever materialized. And ultimately, they ended up drafting a player that they really wanted to draft, and not a lot of people knew that they were even working out. And so I think, this is all a game of keeping different teams away from the players that you covet. And if you're going to do that, then keeping that information to yourself is a valuable thing.
All right, we'll start with the obligatory Ace Bailey questions. It's clearly a pivot point at 3, and then potentially again with Charlotte at 4 and a polarizing draft pick. What do you make of Ace Bailey's pre-draft process, what he could be in the NBA, and could he be that with the Charlotte Hornets?
I think his pre-draft process was probably ill-advised, not working out for maybe one team, maybe 0 teams. The reporting on that has been a little bit mixed, but not making himself available, I think, was ultimately a mistake. I think you're always going to have some positioning by these prospects. If they view themselves as a top 3 pick, then they might not work out for the 4th team or the 5th team because they want to position themselves as such. But I think for Ace Bailey, there were a lot of questions about his game coming out of Rutgers, the season that they had, the season that he had. And I think he could have done himself some favors answering a few of those questions. And different organizations operate in different ways. Some of them want to be wanted. And so if you don't want those organizations by going and doing workouts, even if they feel perfunctory in some way, that can be a mistake as well. But honestly, I think the concern for Ace Bailey is that he wants to be a star. He's been very explicit about that, and he wants to be a star right now. And how does that work with the Charlotte Hornets, who already have someone in LaMelo Ball that was one of the leaders in the NBA last year in usage percentage, how much he had the ball in his hands, and they have a player in Brandon Miller that his game maps very closely to Ace Bailey. So there's a fit question. And then I would also say if you dig into some of the advanced stats on Ace Bailey's pass percentages, on his assist percentages, they're very low. So low that you really can't find a complimentary star player in the NBA that even in 1 year of college had that low of an assist percentage that really didn't show off any playmaking. So either he's hiding it completely, did play with Dylan Harper, a good playmaker in his own right, but either he's hiding it completely or there are some serious questions about his ability to make a leap into star land.
All right, Doug Branson joining us from Locked On Hornets. We'll have Walker Mail on at about 9:15 tonight after the Hornets have made their selection. Walker, assuming it goes, kind of chalky in the first 3 with Flagg and Harper and Edgecombe, if it's Bailey and, you're considering picking him and trading him or just getting your guy, do you just get your guy there?
I think you get your guy. I think you particularly if you're a team in Charlotte that is trying to build a culture. If you're trying to prioritize playing on both ends of the floor, if you're trying to prioritize doing all of the little things, then I think you would want to do that in all aspects of your player acquisition. Draft, free agency, trade. Find those players. The evidence that I have of this front office is that they have done that. They've gone out and went to other people's G League teams and found players like Moussa Diabate and made trades for guys like Josh Okogie that fit that particular mold, and they feel like Tijan Salon, same thing. High character guy, wants to work, wants to get better. I think you find that guy, whether it fits along with everyone's big board or not, whether you think that what that player's ceiling is or not. I mean, that's a difficult thing at the 4th pick, but I think particularly in this draft, when you have a lot of wing prospects that do fit nicely within your LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller context, I think it's a little bit easier to swallow not taking the highest ceiling player in that position.
What would be the deal that you would take to stay within the top 10, still get a shooting guard you like, but move back?
I think that they should prioritize looking for a veteran that can help them come off the bench and continue to improve the things that they need to improve, which are either your ability to play defense on the wing or possibly address a situation that has gotten awkward with your big man and Mark Williams, or you find someone like Corey Kispert in Washington that can just light it up from beyond the arc, because the Hornets had a difficult time doing that, or really any efficient scorer that doesn't need the ball in their hands a lot. The players that had the ball in their hands a lot, Miles Bridges, LaMelo Ball, and Brandon Miller, were not very efficient last season. A lot of reasons for that, a lot of context. They're going to get better, but you also need to add efficient scoring, guys that can get downhill, get to the line, complement LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, who did not want to operate much at the rim, help Miles Bridges out so that he's not having to drive the basketball 1,000 times a game. There are a lot of players that fit that mold, and I think they can find that in a potential trade back scenario.
Doug, are you afraid of having tears for fears tonight? We saw Jeremiah Fear's name pop up, a 6'2", 6'3" point guard who needs the ball a lot at 4. What did you make of, I don't want to call him reports, but his name even popping up with the Hornets, associated with the Hornets at 4?
I do have tears for fears. I do have fears of fears, because I think it's a player, again, at a position, if you are committed to LaMelo Ball, I think that would be an awkward fit. I don't think that Fears is a player that can come in and contribute a lot immediately. I think he's got a lot of building to do on his body and his game. And I just don't love that fit for Charlotte, particularly if they want to compete this season. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. That would feel more project picky to me, particularly, again, if you're playing him at a position that you already have someone that's going to eat big minutes and have the ball in his hands a lot. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
All right, so, whether it's trade back or picking at 4 and Edgecombe is not available and you don't go Bailey, Trey Johnson, Con Knippel, what appeals to you about both of those guys, and who would you kind of, in rank order, put first?
Oh, man, it's so tough because I love both of these guys. Trey Johnson provides you with a creativity offensively, an ability to get his own shot that does have some signals of like, okay, this player could be a future multi-time all-star, could be someone that and that would fit with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, and you could take all 3 of those all-star potential players into a playoff future, and as someone that's going to immediately help your outside shooting, take some of the defensive pressure off of LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. But the concern with Trey Johnson is that he didn't get downhill very much in his year at Texas. And again, you're putting him alongside LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, who also didn't like to get downhill. Can he play physically enough to not come off your bench? And then defensively, I think the one thing defensively with him, well, there's 2 things. One, he needs to build his body. And the other one is that when possessions went long at Texas, he sort of disengaged a little bit on those possessions. So can he, and look, that's college where you don't even need to be as engaged. At the professional level, I mean, the game completely changes defensively. You have to be engaged at all times. Will he respond to that? Will he be able to adjust to what Charles Lee demands defensively of this team? And then with Knippel, a lot of people are going to see it as a safe pick, but I see it as a guy who has a lot of tools. To fit, he's going to come in and immediately help your shooting. I think he has an immense feel for the game. I think he's got playmaking potential all over the place. And defensively, look, is he going to be the most versatile defender, the guy that's going to switch everything, the guy that we saw for Indiana and for Oklahoma City in the finals? Maybe not, certainly not initially, because, you can look at some of the physical testing and go, okay, this guy's probably not going to switch, 1 through 4 defensively. But at the same time, I think he stays engaged enough. I think he's got an IQ enough to hang defensively and contribute an immense amount offensively. So I would put Con Knippel slightly over Trey Johnson, particularly for a team, I think, in the Hornets that are going to want to compete sooner rather than later.
Will you be disappointed if and when you see VJ Edgecombe come off the board at 3? And is he worth it all exploring a trade up 1 spot?
I would be immensely disappointed because I think VJ Edgecombe is somebody that can immediately come in and transform a Hornets defense that was 24th in points per possession allowed, according to Cleaning the Glass. He's a perfect fit. And I think he's got so much room to grow as a shooter and potential playmaker. I I do think there's star potential with VJ Edgecombe, and his work ethic, and I think most importantly the seriousness that he showed in interviews with the media and reports of his interviews with teams. Like, to me, he just fits what Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson have been talking about since they landed in Charlotte. I think VJ Edgecombe would be just the ideal pick for Charlotte, outside, of course, of Dylan Harper. And yes, absolutely, I think it would be worth exploring moving up one spot. I just don't think that Philadelphia would be very interested in that, because I think they are looking for some of those similar things.
All right, Doug, before we let you go, and for folks watching, I think we're going to hear from Hornets guard Brandon Miller very shortly, small forward Brandon Miller very shortly, on maybe what he thinks or knows. I don't know. Maybe he's going to give everything away, Doug. I'm not sure. He's at the draft party.
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to hear what he says, because, if you think back to when Brandon Miller was drafted, it felt like, I don't want to say that LaMelo Ball was consulted, but he certainly was excited to have Brandon Miller as a part of the team. And we don't know how he felt about Scoot Henderson, but we know how he felt about Brandon Miller, and he was excited. So one has to wonder, of all of these wings that could potentially play beside Brandon Miller, how much will the Hornets prioritize someone that they think Brandon Miller thinks he can play with?
All right, Doug Branson from Locked On Hornets. Well said and well lit as always, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.